Welcome to another episode of Coder Conversations. We have Jesse and Patrick back with us. How y'all guys doing?
Amazing.
I'm doing great. That was an awesome intro. You did not have that last time. That was so cool.
Oh yeah, I had to step my game up.
Oh, you definitely set your game up. That was awesome. No, props. 10 out of 10.
I appreciate it, man. What's been new with you guys?
Patrick, you first. You're still learning like something new every day. If y'all don't know, we talk on LinkedIn and like usually it's this goofy stuff, but occasionally he'll go, "Oh, that's cool," and then occasionally he'll ask a question. He'll be like, emoji, and I know it's something
Yeah.
amazing. So yeah,
Yeah, so I met Jesse because I was like frantically networking and he was posting what I thought was a hiring post. He was like, "Hey, we're hiring," but it was actually, "Hey, I'm looking for work." And it was like I was the first comment, and it was like within a minute of
oh,
posting,
that's
it's
right.
like,
You asked me for a
"Hey,
job, didn't you?
yeah." I was like, "Hey, you should
I
you should
forgot
check out my
that.
portfolio work. You should look at this." And then I was like, wait a minute.
That's
I didn't read his post at all. And then I DM'd him. I'm like, hey, my bad, man. But turned out
but
he's
you
cool.
got a gig.
Oh,
Like, what was it 3 months, 4 months after that?
I started this new gig December 5th.
Okay,
So I think it was about 3 months, yeah.
nice.
And then I started learning Rust. So it's like I'm learning C sharp at work. I know JavaScript, at a basic level. So I'm learning C sharp, and outside of work, I am learning slash having Chat GBT teach me Rust um, for like writing firmware stuff. So it's like nothing but code all day. I'm all
So
about it.
say that
I'm like,
again. You're utilizing Chat GPT instead of like blogs and Stack Overflow to learn Rust.
oh no, I'm doing it the old school way. Well, old school. It's the new old school way because old school used to be like the manual and the book. That's
Yeah.
that's
What's wrong with
officially
those?
old school. But the standard way, I still look at. I have a bookmark here. There's the let's see, what is it? Rust by example. Highly recommend that. I can link that if anyone's interested. Rust by example, and then there's this Rust playground if you want to just like tinker with certain things. Yeah, RVA in the house. There you go. But yeah, so if I'm looking for something like beyond the scope of what I know how to program in Rust, and I want to like basically I'm like, hey, chat GPT, show me how to write this specific function that I can't talk about because my product isn't patented yet. And then it'll like go line by line. It's like, here's this function that you'll need for this part of the circuit you're working on. And I'm like, cool. And then I'll double check everything because it's AI and could be wrong. And then I'll ask it questions. I'm like, this doesn't seem right. Why did you choose this way? So it's not a perfect science, but it's like getting me in the direction of it's like showing me and introducing me rabbit holes that I can go down, whereas I would otherwise
Is
just
that
be
faster than like compiling it and
completely
testing it?
clueless.
Doing all that?
So one thing I'm doing is digital to or no analog to digital conversion. I have no idea how to do that, let alone in any language or in any language, let alone in Rust. So my first thing was like, how do I do this? And then the AI spit it back out, and then I just like badgered the hell out of it. I'm like, why did you use this integer type? Why not use this one? Because I've been spending most of my time learning about integer types and like integer or was it overflow
Oh,
or
like Stein
yeah, it's
and
integer
all
overflow,
that.
something like that. But yeah, just like badgering the hell out of it and learning from that, and then confirming what it tells me with Stack Overflow and manuals and stuff like that. I haven't abandoned Stack Overflow. I
Amazing.
still I still like using Stack Overflow.
No, I'm making fun of you. That's just it's amazing that you're actually utilizing it. All we hear, or at least all I read, is the extreme. It's changed the world, or the extreme like, the it's never gonna do anything good. And so it's nice to see the middle ground where it's actually making use. Like example, everyone at work uses Copilot all the time. They love it. but I never see that on social media. I just hear, the make fun of it stuff. So it's really wonderful to hear that it's actually helping people learn stuff. That's awesome.
So yeah, I made a post about it, and it was like, yeah, I went from like noob level 1 to like noob level 1.2 after the interaction. So I learned something. I will say though, my first question that I asked it, I was like, hypothetically speaking, who would win in a fight between a Kodiak grizzly bear and a silverback gorilla? And it gave me the most detailed answer I could possibly have asked for, and I was impressed. I was hooked from that. So I had nothing to do with coding, but I just wanted to see. I wanted to test it with a stupid question.
That was your intro.
Okay. Yeah, that was my intro. And my uncle, who's in cybersecurity, who told me that I should use it for coding. He's like, oh, for fuck's sake, he literally typed FFS, SMH emoji, whatever, and I was like, hey, but I used it to your point. But yeah, you gotta throw a little nonsense at it every now and again. Can't be all work all the time. All work and no play makes ChatGPT a dull AI. I don't know. We'll go with
That's
that.
awesome, man. That's awesome.
Jesse, you should tell us about
I'm
your
trying
new
to
role,
think off the
man.
top of my head. Oh, my new. I'm on day. What's today? Wednesday? Yeah, I just completed day 3, so it's like too early to tell. All I can say TLDR is that I think I can help, and that's good. Like sometimes I've been on consulting gigs or contracting gigs where it's like
that's what they
it's
hired
a
you
long
for. I mean,
contract.
that's me for helping at some level.
Yeah, but like it. The wonderful thing about when I was in my 20s was my overconfidence was coupled with boundless enthusiasm. And so there was never a client or project I couldn't help. And I swore, even in my 20s, that I would never become old and cynical and like, like blah, blah, like never give up the good fight, right? But now, because I'm over 30, I've looked at some projects and I realized it's not that I couldn't help or bring them or right the ship or whatever else. It's that I can do effectively 3 things and I can do it really well. And they have 12 problems. And I literally do not have the stamina to stay here for 18 months and possibly only do 2 out of the 3 of the 12 that they need fixing. You know what I mean? And so I just don't have the patience for it. So it's been a little harder to, some of these consulting gig jobs and contract jobs to like do it. And this one is good because it's local, so I can actually go see the people. I can have communication right in person. The people that are remote are legit, like they're like us. They talk. They want to do a good job, and the tech stack is JavaScript. So it's not like Angular or all my functional stuff that's out of crazy. It's just regular old JavaScript. So like if you can't even succeed at that, it's like, is that really not my fault?
No framework.
Like, come on, Jess. You know what I mean? Yeah, they're using like React and stuff and serverless. So I mean, it's like the easiest stack ever. Like you can't, like if you fail, it's because you're, tired or doing something wrong. You know what I mean? So I'm set up to succeed really well, I think. But it's day 3, and I'm always positive. So you never know. You never know. I think the only downside is I went there on Sunday. I went around the whole building. It's one of those like new, 90s build office park buildings. Good parking, and like not one outlet outside. So like there's nowhere to charge my bike. So I have enough electricity to drive there, drive to lunch, and then drive slowly home. So if I rag it out, I'm like, I'm not going to make it home, but it was really fun. So yeah, that's the only negative about it, I guess. I don't need a gas bike. Yeah. Too early to tell me.
So was there like any like sort of intimidation because all these layoffs going on, like once you got let go from your other job to find this new job?
Intimidation. Yeah.
Or
I think when I left, what was it? Flash development back in like the early 2000s, I had accrued, despite the fact that Flash was dying, I had accrued an amazing network. Like I had so many people on LinkedIn and Twitter and email, and I just, either for pride or being a moron, I never leveraged it. I never reached out to all these people. And again, a lot of these people had grown into VPs and directors, and some were developers, but they were super high, individual contributors. And I never asked them, And one day, like I think it was 4 months into my job search when we moved to Richmond, the wife asked me, she's like, "Have you reached out to like, all those people you used to hang with?" I'm like, "No." She's like, she just looked at me like, "Are you an idiot?" And I'm like, "Yes." So I went out and reached to them, and it worked out really well. I got a couple of gigs from that. But it just never occurred to me because they would reach out all the time, especially during the contracting days. Like we have email list that a friend of mine set up in my name. It was like WWJD, what would Jesse do? But it was for contracting and consulting. And we'd all share gigs and stuff. And so I love to help people and connect people to, go talk to this person. They're looking for a designer, more, CSS person. This person's looking for more for video editing, and they want to do real-time live streaming. And so it was fun, but I never thought to do that for myself. I know it sounds stupid, but it just didn't click. So this time I didn't make that same mistake. When I got laid off, I immediately email blasted everybody. I went on Twitter, I went on LinkedIn, I made videos, and it backfired. I got too many opportunities. It's very similar to like, how like nothing escapes from a black hole. And they're like, well, then how can you see the black hole? And it's got the little whites coming out. It's because it's eating so fast that debris is coming out. It's not just Hawking radiation, right? So the same thing happened. I literally, to this day, I'm still finding emails from people that I got connected to at MIT. They're like, "Hey, you want to join our startup?" I'm like, yeah. Oh wait, this was sent 6 months ago, right? When I was looking for jobs. So I had a lot of opportunities. Doesn't mean they'll pan out. It just means that I leveraged the network good this time. I didn't make the same mistake twice, which is fantastic. The downside is that I had to eat crow, or whatever the phrase is, and go back to all the ones I said no and said, remember when I said no 3 months ago? I'm going with this other opportunity. What if I said JK? Like, do you think there's still an opportunity despite all the layoffs? They're like, yeah, man, it's cool. So like out of, most of the companies I talked to, they were more than happy to, talk again. And they recognize that we all make mistakes. And I just was like, all you're doing is galvanizing that I really want to work with you now. You know what I mean? 'Cause they're being adults. But I think I'm also really biased because Her Majesty and I were the only two left in 2000 out of our entire college group. Like most people in our college group actually didn't graduate, but they all got jobs in the industry in Atlanta. And we watched, this is pre like September 11th, when the economy was, people thought the economy was bad after September 11th, but it was really bad in 2000 because the internet didn't make any money that 2000. And then 2001 was approaching, and the Fed was raising things. Things looked really bad. And so we watched on our email list every week, somebody was laid off every week. And this is before like Twitter and LinkedIn. So we would hear from them about friends. We'd go to user groups and they would say like, is anybody hiring? And it was just like, no one. Is anybody need a job? And everyone raised their hands. You know what I mean? So it was like a very bleak time. So we saw that. Man. At the same time, there were two college kids. And I mean, I was old. What was I? I was 20, 21, something like that. But I was older than the 16-year-olds. And they would ask me like, yo, I'm fixing to go to blah, blah, blah college for this degree. And I feel like I wasted my life because I see what's happening to all y'all in the dot bomb. And I'm just like, dude, like the entire world's going tech. Like this is all the people, like, because they didn't hear about all the company websites that like would show all the startups that had really bad ideas and were failing. There was a lot of good ideas and a lot of, technology that stuck around even that time that was really changing the world. And so I knew it would eventually, I didn't know how good, but it eventually got amazing. Hence why we're on this podcast. It's dope and we can still talk. So even with all that, I also saw the numbers where like, I think Facebook laid off, like, what was it? Like 18,000. I'm just going to make up numbers, but it was like 18,000, but they hired like 80,000 last year. So like, okay. And then you look at all the other companies and they all hired anywhere from 20 to, whatever. So they laid off 8% of their staff, and people are like, oh, wow, 8%, which is awful and horrible. I've been laid off multiple times. It's demoralizing. But if you look at the overall growth, it's amazing. Like tech continues to eat the world. So I look at the chatbots, I get excited. I look at the layoffs and I'm like, all those people are going to find gigs if they love this stuff and they continue to do it. They're going to be fine. If you're a junior, it is a really, really rough time, and my heart goes out to them. But it's also a wonderful time when a lot of startups, they love recessions. That's when they start their stuff. So finding junior developers is actually hopefully a good time. So yeah, the TLDR, to answer your question, is it wasn't intimidating. It was hard to swallow my pride to ask for forgiveness. I'm like, you'll get over that transgression that you were number 2, but now you're number 1, right? Like that was hard. That was hard. But like I said, I have a support group. Her Majesty was really supportive, and my mom was supportive. So yeah, that helps. I don't want to do that again, though. Definitely don't want to do that again. I will say though, the exciting thing about the whole thing was we didn't have this stuff in 2000. We also didn't have it in 2008. We had Twitter, but there wasn't this many people. Like there were, developers and stuff, but it just feels like from 2008 to now, like 2008 to 2010 was really bad too. Like it wasn't as bad from layoffs, but like the opportunities weren't there. And technology was changing and stuff. I feel like there's been such a massive growth in so many people, and the network that I had actually grown. So it's actually helped. So I know there's like the bubble can only get so big, but it's hard for me to be negative when I keep seeing more people like the LinkedIn. I know people bash it, make fun of it, but to watch all
Hell
the
no,
people get
LinkedIn is
laid off,
awesome.
yeah, like that attitude is because like you saw the connections. Like everyone gets laid off and they're like, yo, talk to this person. Yo, commenting for each. Yo, I'm adding this dude who I know is looking for blah, blah, blah. Like that's pervasive and it's everywhere. And it's just like, that is sick. And it wasn't that big, like 8 years ago. So it's hard for me to be negative when I see all that stuff. You know what I mean? It's really hard to not like.
I was on there for 3 months and I got like 3 job offers, which as a junior developer who previously I was in support for like 5 months, and before that I was a self-employed salesperson. To make that transition in 3 months is just, I don't think I would have been able to do that without networking. So like my big thing, like
Yeah.
between like Christmas and New Year's, like I always try to like, think like reflect on the year. And it's like my big thing was like learning how to network effectively. Like that was a huge skill that I'm still refining. Communication, I think, is my weak point, but networking is like assisting in that. Like I can get
really
my
well in LinkedIn DMs.
well, they're not always PG, but we get the point across. That's the point.
Yeah, we're just being honest, man. We're just being honest.
Oh, for sure. And Kevin, by the way, I think you came in muted the last time you talked.
Okay, yeah. I was just
No,
gonna
I can
ask
hear you
you.
now. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask you. Like with all the layoffs going on, does it kind of shake your confidence any? Are you taking any steps to prepare yourself in the event, like if you get laid off?
With me?
Mm-hmm.
I see so many layoffs, and it's like I haven't talked to anyone at work about it, but no one at work is even remotely bothered because we're growing. Like, I mean, we just hired another developer, and I'm like, okay, well, we're definitely not laying anyone off. And I was the 11th person hired in a business that is 25 years old, but is now starting to grow. It's a weird setup because it's like enterprise culture, but the new owners, I don't know if I explained this well, like the new owners bought the company from the now retired founder. And they're like, well, there's a lot of opportunity to grow. So let's do that. So, I mean, talking about, I think Jesse, you said something about like startups love recessions, or they love growing during recessions, or starting during recessions. I think we're seeing that with this company I'm at. So to answer your question, Kevin, I am not really worried about getting laid off. If I am laid off, I know that I've done enough work because I do like a daily journal. I have plenty of stuff and proof to show like I have a killer work ethic. Not remotely worried about anyone else at my level. And I'm not saying, like, humility aside, like I have a lot to learn, but like no one is outworking me. There's no way. Like the other guy that just got hired, like I'm looking at his notes and it's just like this compared to that. And it's fine. Like he's a great kid, but it's like I spend so much time documenting what I learned so that I don't make the same mistakes over and over and over again because I've been there. It's frustrating. It sucks. And I was like, you know what? I'm over this. I'm just going to document literally everything so I can just control F and figure out how to debug this and not spend an hour and a half of my day, like I did last week or wherever the hell happened. And that actually has happened to me. I was working on a portfolio project and I was like, wait a minute, this custom component is not working and it should. Let me consult my journal. Aha! And then we figured it out. 10 minutes versus 2.5 hours. I'll take that. Take that any day. But no, not worried about getting laid off. Got a sweet gig here. Just a good time for the company to be in the company, I guess. Um, yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, you
That's
mentioned
awesome.
something kind of interesting, like you didn't have to put in hundreds of applications to get your first developer job. What do you do different compared to a lot of junior developers?
Okay, so it's funny that you say that. Immediately after my boot camp, I completed my boot camp in 2020, in November of 2020, and then between November and I would say like January, I submitted 175 applications. I got one
Holy
interview.
cow.
In that one interview, I got down to the final round and I was passed by a guy who had experience. I'm like, okay, whatever. And the crazy thing was, it was for the salary was like 140K and it was out of San Francisco. I'm like, there's no freaking way they're going to give this to someone. There's no way I'm getting this. Like, they say, they talk about manifestation and all that crap or whatever, but it's like, they're gonna give this to someone with experience, and so they did. Whatever. Maybe I spoke it into existence. Maybe it's Maybelline. Maybe it's just really, let's just be honest. 140K. They're not looking for a newbie. So I honestly gave up for like 6 months, and I was still self-employed, so I had to worry about that more. And then I was like, okay, let's try this again. So when I tried it again, I was applying. I did like 50 cold apps, and I got nowhere. I got like no responses. I got like maybe one response, um, but then I got like a no response after that. They're like, "Hey, submit these questions and tell us about your favorite the projects you're most proud of." So I showed them my portfolio site, which I spent so much time on with like custom SaaS, custom CSS, and all that good stuff. Mobile responsive, like my logo is my name and it changes to my initials on small screens. Like I put a lot of effort into that. So I talked about how proud of that I was. And I'm thinking like, what other junior developers doing this? Probably a few, hopefully not too many. And out of those that applied, hopefully none, except for me. And then I heard nothing back. And it's like, okay, so what the hell ever. And then I started talking to people. I wasn't talking to people, but I started seeing people on LinkedIn. They're like, cold apps are dead, which is like, you hear these blanket statements like Google's dead or programming's dead, all this stupid shit. Like people know what they're talking about. But anyway, it was like cold apps are dead, and I was like, oh, I like this one. This is something I like. There's a bias there, there's a fallacy there, but anyway, I was reading the post and it's like if you apply to a job like a warm application with someone or with a company where you know someone, like say Capital One, like I know people that work there. I have friends, I have family, and I have previous coworkers. So if I wanted to get a job there, now that I have experience and knowing people there, I could probably get in a lot easier than just doing a cold app, which after
Cool.
years of applying to Capital One, I can tell you it will be easier because they rejected me for years to Capital One. But whatever. I'm just gonna leave it at that. A little salty about that. It took me forever to get there, and then finally I get in there as a contractor. It's like nothing, whatever. Anyway, but TLDR, networking is where it's at. Just like talking to people, meeting your local developers. Jesse being one of them in the RVA area. Turns out a lot of my guitar major colleagues went into development. One of them is a UX designer. One of them is a Googler. One of them is
Oh,
local. He does like C sharp as well. We're actually in the same music scene too, which is really funny. Like Richmond is like honestly a really small development community from what I've seen. But yeah, networking. I did to answer your question. I did cold apply. I cold applied probably over 200 apps, um, which is like not even close to the highest number I've heard is 1,500. I heard a guy did 1,500. It's actually a guy that I
holy
knew.
cow.
That's a lot.
Wow.
That's like I say I'm too stubborn to quit. That is like I don't even want to use the word to quit. Yeah, you can fill in the
Too
blank.
awesome.
But
Too
anyway,
awesome.
200, I was
Wow.
just like, I'm done, whatever. So networking was the move, and I will preach that until I'm blue in the face. Networking is the move. Cold apps are dead. I will say, I will make the blanket statement: cold apps are dead unless you have 8 years of experience. Cold apps are dead.
Well, networking has changed. Like when I was a kid, a developer, even in 2008, what would you consider a good way to start networking if you're just starting out? Because like I
So in
would give
2008,
completely
I'm gonna make
probably
you
wrong
feel
advice.
old. I was in eighth grade in 2008. So
Wow. Holy fish. You were in what grade?
I was in eighth grade. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I just wanted to say that to make you feel old. It's like what us younger
No,
millennials
that
are
was a
supposed to do. It's
rough
like,
year, and you were just playing video games.
oh
Holy
yeah,
cow. Okay.
oh yeah,
Wow.
yeah. No, like I experienced it vicariously through like my friends' parents and my parents, and just seeing them come home stressed more so than usual. I'm just like, okay, it's the Dow Jones.
Okay, it did affect
There's
you.
something.
Interesting.
Yeah, no,
Well, what would you do
vicariously. Yeah,
though?
yeah. So
Like
it's like,
here's an example. Like the first time I got really angry. She wasn't even my girlfriend, but my wife at the time. We would go to industry meetups in Atlanta, and I would find this guy because I was like an extrovert, but I was really shy. Like it was just hard for me once I got out of high school because I was a big class clown and stuff. And I got into college, and it was just super intimidating because like they're all adults and you talk to adults, and I didn't know what to do. And we'd go to this meetup, and I'd maybe meet a guy. Her Majesty would come up to me like 7 minutes after the intro where you walk in and talk to everybody before somebody gives the talk, whatever that talk is around technology, and she'd have like a handful of business cards. And I'm like, dude, there's not that many people here. How'd you get that? She's like, oh, I met this one person and this one woman. She wants to do web design. And I'm like, and it was just very frustrating that she just naturally took to meeting people and networking and stuff. I don't think we do business cards anymore at user groups. Like, so what would you say? Like, would we even go to user groups? Like that kind of stuff. How would you start networking if you just never do it? What would you recommend?
if I were to start networking, so all right, Charlie, you wanted to come up, now he wants to go down. Hence,
It's the internet. Of
you know,
course, we have
cat
echo.
nature. Anyway, I would just get people like the cat out of the way. People that they may have a job for you, but it's not there for you yet. Just put them on the back burner. I tried to incorporate the cat into it didn't work.
It's
Anyway,
all right. A for effort, buddy. A for
um,
effort.
so you can like filter like you go to LinkedIn. I mean, I'm just gonna use LinkedIn. You like search software developer, let's say manager, and then you filter by Richmond, Virginia, and you just message all of them a unique message. Don't copy and paste. I don't care if it sounds unique,
You mean
even if
actually
you
like
copy and paste it.
directly message him? You mean like literally go and LinkedIn and directly message him? Interesting. Okay.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Because people are not aware that they should probably like turn that feature off because they're not getting spammed like that. So what you do, and now I'm probably going to ruin it for everyone. So sorry, not sorry, but you message these people. It's like, hey, I have no idea if you're hiring, but I am like gun ho for a job. This is my portfolio. Again, don't know if you're hiring, but if you have like 5 minutes, I would greatly appreciate you tearing my portfolio apart. I want to know everything that's wrong with it, such and such and such. I mean,
Wow.
I could pull up like some of the messages I sent some people. Like
Did you
if
use anything
someone put
else
like
other than LinkedIn? I mean, was it just LinkedIn and hacking all these managers
100%
or
LinkedIn,
in
yeah.
Richmond?
So I'd
Wow.
like click on them,
Absolutely
I'd
wild.
message them, or I would look at some of their posts. I would look them up on GitHub, see if I could find any of their like personal work. I'm like, hey, I saw this. I was curious about this one implementation of this one, optional chaining, in words terminology. Why did you choose this over that? And then they're like, well, if they respond, then they say, oh, well, I actually chose this for this reason. I'm like, oh, thanks for answering that question for me. Just so you know, I'm actually a junior developer. I'm looking for a new role, such and such and such and such. I guess it comes from being in sales. Like you don't just like knock on the door and say, hey, you want to buy my stuff? And you just like you knock on the door and you say, hey, what's going on, man? So I
So it
guess
sounds
like
like
I,
you
I
leveraged
was
your
in direct
background in
sales. I was
sales.
Yeah,
And
yeah. So I took
like
it to
when
the digital
you sound like
landscape.
my father when you're doing that stuff. You literally had an entire pitch that I was buying, like from when you started. I was like, yeah, okay, I'd hire this kid. I don't even know what he could be, like a Perl developer, but he sounds like he's on the right track. That's awesome. Okay,
That's
because
funny
you have a
because I
pitch.
just
You have a
discovered.
pitch. You have
Yeah,
a
yeah.
pitch. It's awesome.
I should be like Justin Welsh and make like an ebook or something.
Yeah,
I
it
know
might be
people
a
talk
good
about
idea.
Justin Welsh. Honestly, like how
I'd
to
buy it.
sell your
I would
way
totally buy it.
to how to sell your way to a new job, or how would you, what would the title be? How to sell your way
Oh,
to development.
you're a programmer
Something.
now.
I
You
don't know.
can't
I'll
name
figure it
things,
out.
buddy. Sorry.
You said what?
That's not how it works. Once you're one of us, you can't name things. It's just how it works. You call it
Okay,
like the book
fair
of
enough.
stuff, and it's just like, was that as an awful name? Did you consult anybody? Yeah, my bros and I, we talked. We thought it was a great name. It's like, oh, are they programmers? That's the problem.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not your fault.
Like,
We're
did you
supposed to
get
know
any?
how to name variables, just not products or anything. That's the thing.
Did you get any rejections or like rude messages back, or was it all pretty much pleasant?
So, okay, I want to say one more thing. I put freelance developer on my like as my
Oh, your
experience
title.
because technically, not as my
Oh, your
title, but in my
experience.
professional experience, I put
Okay, so they knew you were a junior dev that actually did something. Okay, interesting.
yeah. So I paid my friend $1. I said, hey, you're building guitars. You need a website.
That's
You are
awesome.
going to give
That's
you're going to give me $1 so I can legally claim this as professional experience. Turns out I got the
awesome.
job before I was like building the app, and I like mocked it up in Figma or whatever, and I sent it to him. He said, "Yeah, well, let's meet up and blah blah blah." And then by the time we were supposed to meet up, I got the job. So I was like, whatever. So I took off the freelance whatever, but I was getting so many hits just because I added freelance developer. I don't feel any way about it. It's totally ethical. He gave me $1, legal, professional experience. It's under $600, so I don't have to claim it on my taxes. So whoever's watching this, I'm bulletproof. I don't like come at me, whatever. But as far as rejection, Kevin, I definitely got a lot of people like Michael. I'm gonna mess up his last name, Voigtnot. Michael something starts with a B. I can't remember off the top of my head, but he was with I think it's Credit Karma, and he was hiring like HTML, JavaScript, PHP developers. and, and it was like a year ago, and I was about to message him, and it was like a year ago that same day that he replied, or that I was replying to his message that I never replied to. I was like, oh my God, for starters, I'm so sorry that I never replied to this because it looked like a promising lead and I was so mad. So it's worse, Jesse, than what you did. And it's like, hey, you're not number two, you're number one now. I was like, hey, I care now. So I care enough to
I always
reply.
cared. I always
So
cared. Let's be clear.
I always I always cared. But he was like, yeah, so I'm actually in a different position now. We're not really hiring. I'm like, that's cool. Again, I apologize for missing that. I'll keep a sharper eye on my
Wow.
DMs. But he actually got a new role too, so that's so good for him. Yeah, I wish I could remember how to pronounce his last. There's so many names just floating around in my head on LinkedIn, but a lot of the rejection was just either like ghosting. I think the real rejection that got to me was when I hit up my friend that works at Google. I'm like, hey, I have a portfolio. I'm not asking you to get me in at Google because I'm definitely not ready. Let me know what you think. Never heard from him. And I was like, we weren't super tight, I'll admit, but we were like conversant, like we weren't
Yeah.
like foes or something. Like we were friends on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. You know what I'm saying? Like, why would you just ignore the message? Like, do you feel superior? Like, what is that? And then someone from my high school who is my birthday twin, who also works at Google, I hit her up. I'm like, hey, I'm looking for a new role. I saw you at Google. Not trying to get a Google job, just trying to see who in your network may be hiring. And then again, it's like left me on red. I'm like, great, whatever. Not wishing you happy birthday ever again, even though it's my birthday and I know it's your birthday soon.
So hey, caveat, and I'm not saying that this is what they did, but if you do that with me, it's my kid's fault. I either missed a message or they're yelling at me, or Her Majesty said you've been saying you would take the trash out for a week and you didn't, and I have a list of messages. I click it, I read it, then she yells at me and I forget about it. If all you have to do is next week, like, Jesse, dude, what are you doing? I'd be like, oh God, I remember now. I would like totally, like you, I'd be humble. I'd apologize. It was my kids, which is not a legitimate excuse, but like it just happens a lot. So I think if you follow it up, I'm curious if they would say, I don't remember getting this. And whether that's honest or not, would you actually get the review of your portfolio? That makes me curious. Just because I know it's happening.
To your
Like, people have asked me
point.
to do things and I forgot. I totally forgot.
That's a fair point. I will say, like, the one individual I messaged again. I said, hey, just so you know, I got a new role. Thanks for your help. I'm petty. I'll be honest. I'm extremely petty. I got a new role.
not gonna
Thanks for your
screw
help.
you
And
well.
she read it too. So it's like, I know you saw this. Like, you, I know you saw this.
Maybe her cat
But
pressed the keyboard and it was the cat who read it, not her.
nah, she's a dog girl. I don't know her like that, but you
Oh.
know, people
Well,
tell their
my dog
lives over
doesn't touch
social
keyboard.
media. Very revealing.
That's funny.
It's kind of
So no one
concerning,
was
like
rude.
how
No one was rude though. Like, really, after all those cold calls or cold messages, that's crazy. I would
I
be
had a cold
afraid.
call
Like,
too, by the way. I figure that
you did.
should be mentioned.
Wow.
Yeah,
Like
I cold
phone?
called to like Boston area, and it was actually with West Creek before they transitioned to Qualify. I was in their sales department.
Oh, really?
So
Wow.
yeah, so like all that subprime bull crap. It was like we call and be like, "Hey, it's Paulie's garage. How can I help you?" And I was like, "Hey, I'm looking for," and I started to put on a fake accent, like, "Yeah, I'm looking for Paulie. Is he in?" And then it was like, "This is Paulie. What the fuck do you want?" And it's like, okay, I can't do this. So, I, so yeah. Anyway,
A for effort, buddy. A for effort. But
yeah,
it's just
yeah.
crazy.
No,
Your
cold calling is not my thing.
I know, but your lack of fear of rejection is just insane. Like my fear, even if it's like not Google, right? And have someone who's not Google not even give me the time of day and then get irritated that I was asking for advice or something like that would really just crush my self-esteem. So the fact that you're like,
Nah,
okay, my phone call,
nah. So
that's crazy.
in sales, a no, I will take a quick no over someone stringing me along, be like, "Oh yeah, I'll see what I can do," and then you wait on them. It's like, "Here, hit me up in a week," and I would rather someone tell me, "Nah, not interested. We're not doing this." Like, great, on
You
to
need
the
to
next
move
one. I don't
on.
have to worry about you.
Wow.
We're done. I never have to talk to you again. I'd rather someone get like real shitty with me, to be honest, because when I was doing door to door and someone got nasty with me, I'm like, okay, there's no way I can convert this unless I wait for the wife to get home. But that's another story
Oh,
for
yeah.
another episode.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's when you can knock twice. But that's, yeah, I feel like that's a whole another lifetime ago. But anyway, anyway, yeah, no, if someone's like getting real nasty with me, like that's great because I would never want to work with this person. So I don't. We're done. I can just move on.
Note to self:
So
don't
I
ever
guess
get
I don't know. I
nasty
guess I
in
just
DMs with Patrick.
I invite it. I don't like toxicity, but it makes my job easier. Ironically. Like I don't like people being nice just because they think they're doing the right thing. Like, it's like, no, I need you to be direct to the point. I'm sticking my foot down everyone's throat trying to get a job. I need you to be the one to close your mouth and to signal this way. It's like we're not doing this. I'm looking for the
Well,
open
especially
mouth
with that
for the
many
foot.
requests, that must be very time consuming. So I could see how it would help. Wow.
I spent most of my
That's
day job at the
amazing.
time doing it. Like I was working a support job. I would have my personal computer here. I would be networking, working on my portfolio. You know, I'd look over and be like, "Huh, I got an email from my boss like an hour ago." Yeah, so
Well,
LinkedIn.
so Kevin, hold on, dude. So I don't know how, like, you look young, so I'm just gonna assume you're young. What do you feel about this? Because like I said, I feel like I'm very biased, and I'm
Mhm.
just a very positive person. What do you feel about all this, like, layoff stuff? Like, is it
Um,
similar to us, or is it different, or what's your thoughts on this?
yeah, for me, it's I'm 38, so I've been around for a little while, kind of seen
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. So I'm a little getting up there, but I seen the industry come and go, the boom and bust. You remember 2000, they had the tech buzz. So realistically, it's part of the game. So I'm always trying to stay prepared. That's why I always mention like you always have to stay networking, reaching out to people on LinkedIn. Like as soon as you get a job, you shouldn't just disappear into the void. You should still stay
Horrible
interacting
mistake.
with people. hmm So it
I stay on LinkedIn. I'm
yeah.
saying at least once a week.
Oh man, yeah,
I feel like I
I
gotta post
almost
more.
live on LinkedIn.
Well, it's like I got
Jesse,
Patrick
you post
like
quite often.
sharing people. Yeah, but that's what I was gonna say is like I look at Kevin and he's like talking about these internal struggles, but they're applicable to all. So they're very meta and they're very draw you in. Like, oh yeah, his struggle is my struggle, and okay, we relate. I should do that. Thank you, Kevin. But sometimes they're deep, and you got to think about them. You are like, at least in my feed, are sharing all these other people, and so I'll like, especially if you like a post that somebody's did because they got laid off or something, I'll like share that if I don't know who to connect them to, and then I'm like, yeah, I found this cool code thing. And I'm like, maybe, maybe I should do something. But that's what I'm passionate about. So it's like really hard to incorporate just, Kevin's like, have you really thought about this? I'm like, no. And then you're like, all right, I've only liked like 1,000 posts today. I'm like, dude, this is not StarCraft 2. What are you doing? Slow down. You know what I mean? So yeah. You both have made me strategically think if there's something I should be doing different. Um, yeah, I haven't really thought about how to change that. But when you
From
say other things, Kevin, can you elaborate on that though? Like not I know we talked about
Mhm.
LinkedIn, but like what do you mean by other things? Like what does that mean? Like beyond the podcast and stuff. What is that? Can you elaborate?
Oh, okay. So yeah, I'm working on a couple of applications with some friends. I'm constantly trying to meet new people and make connections and see where it goes. Like interestingly enough, just from the podcast, like CEOs and different people of that nature, they've been hitting me up. I don't know why, but that
don't
just
blame
shows
That's
you the
them.
awesome.
power. It just shows you the power of visibility.
That's
Absolutely.
awesome. Well, wait a minute. So if they hit you up on LinkedIn and you accept, does that change how you feel about posting things, or
Mm,
or or not at all? You're like I'm always me and I don't care. Like what? How does that?
yeah, I'm always going to be me and be real. But I've kind of had to switch up how I post things. Like before, I used to post with big paragraphs, and nobody would really read it. So I kind of had to break it down into like one or two sentences per paragraph.
I've noticed a change in your posts
Yeah,
for the better. I think. I mean, I didn't have a problem with it before, but you've made an improvement. Like when I'm gonna agree with Jesse. Like when I read your post, it's like this affects all developers. Like I remember the one that sticks with me the most was it was something about it's like it looks like I have to go the management route because it looks like all of our jobs are being outsourced. And then it was like it created a discussion. And yeah, there is some humor to that because like people have been talking about it for a while, and then it's like, oh, AI is going to take over our job. It's like, no, it's the people that learn AI that's going to take over our job. But it's like your post created a discussion. Jesse's posts, I think, create like an interest. Like the 3JS stuff, I swear to God, for like 3 years, I've wanted to learn it, but something else has always like taken over in priority. And I'm just like, this is going to be the thing that, tips
No,
me
no,
over the edge. It's
you'll
like,
be done in 12 years. You'll be done with Rust and C#. You'll be ready. So it'll be there.
yeah,
It'll
yeah.
be there waiting. So
That's kind of how it feels, man. Like
that's what's
C
so
sharp, the
cool.
more I
That's what's so
learn,
cool. Well,
the
see,
more I
you're
learn C
different too
sharp, the
because you got
darker
in
it
at a
gets.
wonderful time with C# though, man. Because you've got all the new stuff in C#, plus you've got like this plethora of just Rust fervor. So like I envy you because you've got so many toys at your disposal now to like pick up and learn.
Oh, I love
So
it.
yeah, that's awesome.
I love it. I'm getting an itchy sales palm just thinking about it.
So we actually got a question. Imani says, question as an instructor, what should I make students aware of given this current job market?
Get after it. You are not going to get anything handed to you. You need to be aggressive with messaging people. Look, stomp your foot down these
That
people's
should be your
throats.
logo, dude. If you ever make a logo, it should be your shoe. Your shoe. That's awesome.
But look, you do it with love. You do it with love. You say, hey, that last post really resonated with me. Here is why, such and such and such. Don't just say, hey, someone hit me up the other day and I thought it was so ingenuine. Not ingenuine, but it came off as just like, stop doing this. Like, oh my God, you have the most amazing LinkedIn banner. It's like, no, I don't. I made it on Canva. It took me 3 minutes. Shut up. And I'm
That's
just
funny.
like, I hate that. Just like be genuine. Like start the conversation. You know,
Yeah,
have a
but they're
conversation
nervous.
with someone.
They're nervous. That's funny.
I don't know. I guess just like being in sales is like it ruined the way I approach things and how I receive people.
Because you
Like when
see how
people
that
just like
affects.
randomly hit me up,
Right.
it's like I am my own worst enemy. Like when people randomly hit me up, like the gate is strong and it is high. It's so hypocritical, but
So wait
it
for
also
you
depends
to
on
hit
what they're
me up.
it depends on their agenda. But to answer the question, as an instructor, get these people aggressive. Like most programmers are introverts. I mean, I'm an introvert for sure. Um,
Oh
INTJ
man.
all day. Well, I guess I'm ENTJ as of recently. I just took a new test. But I would say like learn who is developing in your local market or your region. I'm in Richmond, so for a while it was Angular and now it's React. And then like learn what companies are hiring, so like CoStar, Capital One, the Fed, whatever. And then network with these people. I mean, like look them up on Facebook and see what bars they go to, and then you know do like what he does in Better Call Saul and just like bump into him, bump into him. It's like, oh hey, I remember you from the JS meetup. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, Patrick. Yeah, yeah. What was your name again? Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. Let me add you on LinkedIn. We'll talk. We'll talk later. Look, if you got to social engineer your way to get it, it don't matter. Like you're gonna whoever wants it the baddest is gonna get it. That is what this market is telling us. If anything, you got to be freaking aggressive. I don't care what anyone tells you. Period.
You have got
End of
some really
rant.
hard questions, Imani. Wow.
I'm
So
glad she thinks
when
it's good
I
advice because I
no, it is good advice. I agree. But I had a professor, and when I was in college, it was around like 2000 is when I graduated, and we were all scared at the end of '99. And we asked him, we like, what
oh
do we
god.
do? And he was just like, he was afraid because he's like, look, if like 99 was bad, okay, the 98 to 90 year was bad because all these companies aren't making money. And he said this Christmas is really the tipping point because we need to see what happens after this Christmas if a lot of these internet companies are going to make some money. And the year 2000 came out. We didn't have the 2000 bug, but a lot of these companies were just failing, not making money. And so a lot of us in tech are like, did we just waste, years at college? Like, was this a mistake? And he was just, adamant, like, tech is continuing to be the future. You look around, literally what you have now, a year from now is going to be more techified. So you're in the right place. So I think that helped our self-esteem a lot. But more importantly, he would bring industry professionals constantly to talk to us, and by constant, like once a month. But I mean, like we would go to school, meet him, we were rewarded. So like I was incentivized as a graduate to come back and like pay it forward kind of thing. So that helped because we would see the gloom and doom, and then you would see like a real person in the industry, like, look, it's awful, but I have a job and I love it. Right. And so you'd be like, all right, so there is a place for me. That was really helpful. And I think the third thing was like like Kevin said, this is cyclical. Like it happens, all the time. I think this time is different because it's supposed to happen every 8 years, and it happened in 12. And so it was gonna crash harder than normal, which is not okay, but it's just that's how it is. That's how life is. And then I think the brass tacks, or you're asking on languages. I'm biased because I'm a spoiled brat. Like I was kind of raised only child, so I kind of learn what I want to learn and get a job for it, which means that the languages and tech that I use have very few to no jobs at all. So if I were to go the opposite route and swallow my pride and say if I was, wanting to get a job, anything with JavaScript, anything with TypeScript,
Yeah.
anything with Go, anything with Python is where it's at. The only challenge you're going to have with Rust currently is it's probably going to be either consulting or some of the smaller shops that are trying to attract Rust developers because they know that the Rust developers can't find bigger gigs. But it's a nice sweet spot because it's growing, it's new, it's proven, it's been around for 10 years. That's a good thing to do. If they are okay with the enterprise stuff, Java is a perfect match. It's not cool. It's old, but it runs 80% of the world. That isn't Fortran and COBOL. Everyone uses it. It's got a huge community around it. There's tons of jobs for it, both new code and old code. And the exact same thing with C#. Like C# is still banging on all things. Stack Overflow is written in C#. So like those are good ecosystems if you're not willing to do the web or cybersecurity route. That's what I think for on languages. Every other language that I have on my LinkedIn stuff, I wouldn't learn those unless you just want to have fun like I do. So let's see what else. Oh, we lost Kevin. All right, I'll see. What else can we answer on that?
I was gonna say,
Midwest.
in terms of
Oh, he's back.
languages,
Good.
I don't know. Like, if you want to get why did you start learning development? Like, did you want to build software? Did you want to build web applications? You want to do mobile apps? Like, figure out what you want to do. Like, why are you doing this? And then learn the tool. Like, I did woodwork for a little bit. So it's like you have to pick the right tool to get the job done. Yeah, you can have one tool that does a few things and there's some overlap there. Like Java and C#, you can do similar things, and JavaScript and,
Well, the travel though is interesting. If you look, did you see your latest question? So I only ever had to travel when I was a consultant for Accenture and occasionally some of the smaller firms. When the pandemic happened, the unbelievable happened, and Accenture actually went to work from home. I wasn't working at it at the time, but all my friends there did. And I know everyone can't really predict what's happening with the job market, but it seems to me every single recruiter I talked to back in what was it, when like around September of last year, right before the layoffs started. So September of last year, when the pandemic was cooled down, at least in the US. And then lately I've been going through a lot of the recruiters again, because although I have a contract, it's up in a year, and I'm just trying to see what opportunities are out there and how things are going now, because I'm very curious what's really happening with all these tech people. And nobody is talking about anything but remote. Everybody. I am the only developer left on the planet that actually likes going to an office. I'm the only one. So if a student is worried about travel, they don't have to. I know some people, everything where from like, I think it's Nashville all the way to Austin, who work remote. If you lived in Austin, you can go to office, great. But like, I don't know of most, at least people on Twitter and LinkedIn who I associate with, plus the recruiters I've talked to, nobody's traveling. Everyone's remote. They will live all over the country and work for companies that are nowhere near them, which is, from an opportunity perspective, is amazing, right? From an extrovert perspective like me, it's awful. And from an opportunity perspective, because it means I can only get jobs in Richmond. So I think your students are actually in a wonderful, wonderful place, I think. Oh, wait, Joseph misses the office. Thank God. All right, Joseph.
yeah. So I go into the office once every 2 to 3 months, and that's because it's part of like this training / onboarding thing, because I do like 20 hours a week in Pluralsight learning C# through lectures, which is sometimes great because I had one instructor that was he was from Italy, so he'd be like, "Okay, and the next step is to install the." And it's like the way he talked. It was like it reminded me of like some of my family members that I heard only growing up because like on my mom's side, I would have been the fifth generation of brick masons. So like I really broke the chain with
Wow.
that with that one. In my defense, I still build things, just not with physical bricks, but with like ones and zeros. But like that module was great. But then this other lecture, it was like some of these guys in Europe, it's like the way they pronounce certain words, like variable instead of variable. It's just like, God, stop it.
Reliable.
But if we were all the same, we wouldn't appreciate the differences, and that's why I have to keep telling myself. Not sure how I got on that tangent, but we were talking
No,
about
going in person and actually being able to communicate with that person would have been
right,
easier
right, going in person.
had
It's
you been in the office. You think,
y-
right? Or no?
yeah, I've been in the office once so far. I'm going to go back at the end of the month, um, and I'm not stressed about it. I mean, I'm currently living an hour and some change out of Richmond, just for reasons.
Oh wow, that's a
And I'm
long
going to be
drive.
moving. Yeah, but I'm gonna be staying with some. I'm gonna be crashing on some friends' couches. I may just suck it up and get a hotel, but it'll be the last time that I'm not like
Oh, it'll
20
be
minutes
20
away from the
again.
office, so it's not really a big deal. And I don't really mind going in. It's just having the freedom to not. That's what I want. Freedom. I want the choice. It was like
That's what
COVID.
I
It was
keep
like
hearing
great.
from a lot of these. They
It was
love the
like great
freedom.
being
That's their thing,
single.
man.
I've been single for a minute, but like when COVID hit and there was lockdown, I was like, oh, now this sucks. You know what I'm saying? So
Is
it's
that
like
what the
having the
cat is for?
option.
Okay, that's
Well,
awesome.
he's a cool cat. Like like if I'm having a bad day, which they happen, I like to think I'm a joyful, upbeat person. I have a positive outlook on life. But if I'm having a rough day, I'm just like laying in bed, like, oh god, like he'll come over and like,
The cat can
meow, what's
tell.
up, dude? And what's really
That's
funny
awesome.
is that he's gotten in this habit of if my first alarm goes off and I just hit snooze and go right back to bed, he'll like snuggle up right next to me and start purring real loudly to try to wake me up. And I'm just like, that's so much better than the beacon alarm or whatever that every
Beacon
iPhone
noise.
user. Yeah, yeah, the PTSD associated with that that ring. You can't beat the purr of a
Well,
cat for an alarm. That's the only thing about dogs. They don't purr. They can't wake you up like that. But I don't hate dogs.
mine
I just
whines
have a
every
cat.
morning. Mine whines every
Nah,
morning, so
no,
I have to get him
mm-mm,
up. Amani keeps
couldn't
asking
do
these
it.
insanely hard questions. So one thing, I don't know if y'all saw it. She asked about, working from home is
No,
dope,
I
but
missed it.
is it detrimental to fresh grabs? Like, so I've heard two things multiple times in the industry that are a little
Cats can only do so
concerning.
much
The
for you.
first is some companies, this is before the pandemic, some companies are not set up for remote working. They don't know how to do it. They might have Slack, they might not, they might not have onboarding stuff. So they weren't set up for it. Now every company is doing remote and they have to figure it out. That doesn't mean that they're all the same. And so a lot of them can do onboarding horribly. Onboarding is you in I think that's an instant problem. And so although they might not be remote, like only, like heavily promoting remote, I feel like to connect with people, even just going in the office really helps with communication. Like consulting, we did that all the time where sometimes, we would
Absolutely.
work remotely from a client, but that 1 week of sitting with that person, like learning like about Patrick, he has a cat and, where his moving situation, like that connection is just so powerful in person. And then every communication remotely after it helps. I think the second thing I've heard that's concerning, and this is just, me preaching, is that most of our industry before the pandemic grew up around independent developers working and committing PRs. And eventually we would come together in some kind of scrum ceremony or agile ceremony. A lot of
Mm,
us, and I say a lot of us, but we're still a super minority, believe in pair programming or mob programming, some kind of ensemble where all of us work on the same story at the same time. And you can do that over Zoom, like we're doing right now, but that connection is an all day thing. It is not like a 5-minute, hey, I'm having a bug, can you take a look at this, thanks, peace out, have a nice day. It is there. So if they are remote, but they do some kind of pair programming or mob programming, then you can develop those connections a lot easier. And I don't think it's detrimental. The problem is companies doing pair programming and mob programming are super rare. So finding something like that would be, a godsend, especially in this economy, I think. So yeah, I do think it's detrimental, but I feel like if you look at the evidence of the industry, my opinion is definitely not agreed with by the industry. They say, oh, you can totally work remote. It's fine. I think it's detrimental. I agree with you. I think it's I don't know if you said it was detrimental, but it can work. It can work.
But I was gonna say there's a caveat. Like it depends on who it is. Like, can you program? Like, can you type on a keyboard? Then you can program. Well, not necessarily. Like, can you communicate with someone over Zoom? Yes, but can you effectively communicate what you need to communicate in a business setting? I think yes, because personally, like if this is not enough to get your thoughts across, then maybe I don't know. I definitely have my opinions on it.
You're a sales guy. You know that communication is 80% body language, right? And like, there's just
oh yeah, that's funny that I was going to say that.
Who's the neuroscientist guy? He said a really concerning thing. He said that the concern around some of the X-gens is they grow up with stuff like this and like doing podcasts like we do, and so they don't always talk, and so they grow up a little more awkward, which I think is amazing. But at the same time, it makes the long-term connections harder. And it directly affects birth rate, right? And things like that in our country and things like that. So we have the same problems that Germany do. And I see it happening with my younger daughter, not my older daughter. And so I have grave concerns because the older one's like, can I get into cybersecurity? And that's fine. That's a very horizontal discipline. But my younger one would probably do what I do. And I get really concerned that she would just live her entire life in Discord, right? And I think that's awful, like really awful. Is that the old guy fear coming out? Maybe.
No, that's valid.
It's just a
concern. I think that's valid. Because I mean,
you teach in pair programming? That's awesome. Sorry, go ahead, Patrick. I was just reading what you wrote.
No, you're good. So it's like I remember when I was a kid, I would hear like I grew up in a church and I heard like all the parishioners talking. It's like, oh, kids, you never see them outside anymore. It's like, first of all, we were outside all the time. The only reason I got a cell phone was because, well, not all the time, but the only reason why I got a cell phone was because I was out after dark skateboarding with like the neighborhood hoodlums. I was part of that, I guess. Birds of a feather. But my mom wanted to make sure I was safe, so she gave me a call-only phone. Flip phone. I'm old enough to know what a flip phone is, so don't even. I'm just gonna nip that at the bud. No jokes there.
Razors were the best. The best.
Okay, so fun fact. We're going on a tangent here, but if you ask a young person, like post 9/11, how they answer a phone, they'll say this. If you ask like one of us, like how do you answer the phone, they'll say this.
Like this.
Like this, right? But people are used to the brick. So they'll say hello. It's funny. That's how you can tell what generation someone is. But anyway, in terms of like, you have to have like some kind of social interaction. Like it's like we go to school in classes together and interact together. And we have like all this time between classes. We have lunch. We have like these after school activities. And then we just go home and work in isolation. Like, what is that? Like, again, it should be an option. It shouldn't be mandatory. Now, for those that only want remote work, then make sure the company you're working for is 100% remote. Me personally, I don't care either way as long as I have the option to work remotely. I don't want to be forced to go to the office. I am like my downfall in corporate is like. So there's always a joke getting cracked at work because there's like 10, 12 people and 10 of them have worked with each other for like 7 years. So they're always cracking jokes and I'm like part of that now. So it's like you don't want to be the guy that's always cracking a joke because that's not how you get to management. Not that that's my immediate goal, but you know what I'm saying? Like you don't want to be
I
the guy
do.
that's always
Yeah.
joking around because no one's gonna take you seriously. But just like learning these things, like you're not gonna learn these things as well as you would. Um, like if you're remote, you're not
Being
gonna
in
learn them as
person.
well.
Yeah.
Like if you're in a Zoom meeting with the CEO of Capital One, Rich Fairbank, it's not going to be the same as being in the room with him. So for certain applications, I could see it as being, you know, I wouldn't say cumbersome, but you're definitely missing something. I think at the end of the day, like hybrid's the move. Like give people the option. Like parents want to see their kid. I wrote a post on this. Parents want to see their kids making their first steps. Like let that happen. And people my age, like I'm a bachelor, I'm not trying to run my errands on the weekends. I'm trying to go on dates with hope and find my spouse on the weekend. That's why I want remote work. But then when I have kids,
Right.
I want to be in the office so then I don't have to hear them crying all day. Options. Going back to that. I think we had another question or a
That
comment.
that it's crazy Amani said that because the wife and I were literally talking about this last night about like, we got to watch the DoorDash and we got to, in March, we're going to do the whole workout thing, try to be healthier. And she's like, well, I've heard the Z-Gens, these DoorDash more than us now. And I'm just like, that's stupid. They don't do that. She's like, no, I saw it on social media. And now Amani's saying the same thing. That's terrifying. That's absolutely terrifying.
I used to be a delivery driver, so I absolutely refused to do delivery. I also used to be a server. I was like a server at Nacho Mama's, if you remember Nacho
I do.
Mama's in Richmond.
Yep.
I was a server there for a minute. So I absolutely refuse to like sit down at a restaurant unless I'm like forced to. I like going out, but it's like I was like always trying to be the best server, DoorDash, whatever I was. And it's like when I get bad service, I hate it because I always tip well no matter what. And it's like, so
my grandfather was
yeah.
a waiter, so I can get the worst possible service. I'm like, yeah, I guess I'm tipping 25% for that, which I have to. It's the worst because my grandma was like, what'd she say? She was really sad one day. And she goes, he worked really hard. And so ever since that, it's emblazoned that no matter how bad the service is, like I have to tip good. Good news, I don't ever have to go back there, but I always have to tip the waiter because they, it's just a rough gig, super rough gig.
Oh, it's a mandatory thing. If you don't tip, then you shouldn't. If you can't afford to tip, GTFO, bro. Like no question. Like
I don't tip my DevOps people, but I have been tempted multiple times in my career to tips. Whether like I know we're all DevOps now, but like the ops people who are still ops people, right? They're the one who really dives deep into the Linux and gets the server working. Like I have been like I brought donuts to the office, I brought beer to the office, and it's like, oh wow, what did we do? I'm like, y'all did nothing. This is for ops, right? Like they just grease the gears to make it work. And so like I would never tip a dev, but I would totally tip ops. I feel like that kind of gig, like they say like IT's going away and stuff, but I watch a lot of these Kubernetes people and these Jenkins people, and they make it all work, and it's like something I would never be able to do with any amount of Ritalin or money or beer or whatever. It can never motivate me to do it. And so I hope they know they're appreciated. That's what I hope. Totally hope.
I was gonna say, who is saying IT is going away? Because if anything, we have a vacuous deficit in IT and especially cybersecurity. I mean, we have teenagers from all over the world hacking the living shit out of us because we
all the
lack
cyber people
talent.
there's a lot of cyber people. They're just at a certain company in town that I won't name.
Pardon my language. It's a very passionate topic of mine. I told you I come from
the IT people that and when I say IT, originally they were the ones who did all the networking, set up all the computers, set up the phones, which I know we have phones now, but back then it was like you set up the office so you could work, but they also did the servers. And when
CISO
things
makes
started
enough
changing
money.
where servers
Sorry, I had to reply to Amani.
No, it's fine. I got to tip the CISO. But yeah, like they were originally underappreciated, and then the expectations raised. and a lot of that
Mm.
burden started being put on the developers. And people who didn't have those people, like I did, I have an appreciation. I knew what they brought to the table. So it's very similar to when you look at full stack, right? Like the expectations are for us to do vertical sliced stories. So we take the user story, we do the front end, the back and the ops and set up stuff. The ideal for that is great because we can get, you know, smaller value to users. But a big core part of that was setting up all the infrastructure and pipelines, which is traditionally what IT did. And now it's on us, which I think is frustrating. So when I say IT is going away, it's because it has. A lot of those people, I only got one guy running the entire company, and now he's no longer with us. And you constantly see that. Oh yeah, you guys do the ops. That's fun, right? You can do it in serverless. I'm like, hold up, that's not what I signed up for, man. So
I see what you're
I definitely
saying.
miss the
Okay.
IT people.
That comes from
And again,
ignorance on my
that term
part.
has changed too.
That's fair.
Well, the
That's
term,
fair.
like, what does DevOps mean? What does good code mean? Right? Like our terminology in this industry it's vaporous anyway. So it's misunderstanding something because somebody who's a thought leader can say this is what IT means, and then somebody else is a thought leader can say what IT means, and they don't match up at all. And you're just like, who's right? They're both intelligent. Who do I believe? It's like, I don't know, dude. Good luck. Good luck. Tip the system.
My tech lead / CEO does not believe in using the term DevOps. Like he thinks it's a made up thing, which I think is great.
It's all made up. It's all made up. DevOps, full stack, like
Oh
JavaScript
yeah,
is supposed to
I
be
love
based off
his.
of Java. It's all made up.
So his opinion on full stack is that you can't claim full stack unless you've been in the industry for at least 10, 15 years. And after working in C# for 2 months, I am inclined to agree because it is tricky. Kevin, what do you think about that full stack? Like
Yeah.
people
What are your
coming
thoughts on
straight
full
out of a
stack?
boot camp. People coming
Uh,
straight out of a boot camp saying they're full stack just because they learned Node and React. Like, come
yeah.
on.
So I kind of feel like it makes it harder for you to get a job because, you know, realistically, if you put C, C++, Python, Java, like any senior developer, they can look at that and know you're making stuff up. You know what I mean? Like you can't really be good at all of those languages in 3 months. So uh, I'm
Unless
always a
you're
fan
Rain
of
Man.
exactly. Like
Well,
I'm a fan of
you know, it's funny
focus.
that happened to me. I put all the languages in there, and as senior devs, he was
I thought you were gonna
irritated,
say you're Rain
and he
Man.
no, I wish, and he said, "Do you know all these languages?" I'm like, "No, dude, I tried every single one of these languages." But Kevin wasn't there to say you're not sending that impression, bro. You're what you're sending is that you know all these languages. I'm like, oh no, I don't know all these languages. I just played with them. So yeah, that was definitely something I screwed up. What else? So don't know the languages. What else?
So, like to me, you gotta focus. Like when you're creating your resume, it's like your advertisement reel. Like, what kind of job are you trying to get? I'm a React developer. I'm an Angular developer. If that's the case, your resume needs to cater towards that. Take more of that real estate and put your different things you've done in Angular. Like when you start diluting a resume with 10,000 different technologies, like recruiters they search by keywords, so it's going to be harder for
Right.
them to find you as a React developer if you have 50,000 other keywords on your resume.
So
So,
here's my
I like the
question.
word diluting. Diluting is a good word. I like that.
That I agree. So here's my question, and Jesse can confirm this. I am horrible at writing a resume, at least as a junior
Oh, that was your
developer.
first attempt. Whatever. That was your first attempt. No.
No.
So that wasn't
That
me.
was my
That was Her
50th
Majesty.
attempt.
Yeah, but it was
That
like I
was
said, 80% of it was good. We just needed to change some things on the top. That was it. Like I thought it was great.
fair enough. Okay, I'll
Just
take it.
needed
No, but
needed some changes.
I've been working on that resume for months. I mean, it was like resume after resume after resume. It's like, okay, I'm not getting any responses. Resume. You know what? Maybe I should just network, and then I don't even have to worry about a resume. And honestly, that was the motivation. I'm not gonna lie to you. That was the biggest motivation because if I don't know how to write this stupid freaking thing, I'm just gonna talk to people and get straight to the point. But I guess if Kevin, if you're the resume guy, let's talk resumes for like aspiring developers. Like what do you do? How do you do it? What do you
I'm
put
not
on there? What do you
really
not put on there?
Sure. I'm not really a resume guy, but when I've been studying it, it's kind of like um, so I've been studying a lot of marketing stuff lately. What you want to do is okay, there's different types of communication. There's like the scholarly, I'm going to convince you with a variety of facts type of communication, and there's communication geared towards having you take action. So that's more like the ad copy. So if you've been reading my posts lately, you've been seeing I've been breaking things down instead of huge paragraphs, more so like the smaller sentences. So like when recruiters they look at your resume, they skim over it. They don't like read every single thing.
It's like
So
10 seconds per resume, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So you have to make all the information like easily digestible when they're skimming. So use like small sentences like kind of like spaced apart and have the keywords emphasized like. And you also think, why is somebody hiring you to their company? They want you to bring value to their company using that particular technology. So if you're just randomly listing facts like, yeah, I know how to turn on a computer, I know how to use Excel, I know how to water the lawn, it's like, okay, like,
Lamp stack developer.
mhm.
That's awesome.
So
So
you have to
okay, so
take.
don't dilute.
Uh-huh.
Don't dilute. Make sure that you have a branding. Like if I want to be an Angular developer, like say that. Make
So
sure
the
you
listing,
don't
right?
use large sentences. Like I have a lot of large sentences, but what do you mean by highlight keywords? What does that mean?
Okay, so you, I don't know if you necessarily want to do this on the resume, but in my LinkedIn posts or in my like YouTube titles, I make certain keywords bold so that it catches the eye.
Okay, that
So
makes
maybe,
sense.
maybe you can do that on a resume, make like React bold, use React, and then, React is in bold to build a shopping cart component. Brought this efficiency to a company utilizing Redux, make Redux bold. So, like when they're scanning your resume, they see those keywords and they also seeing how you use those technologies to bring value to the company. That's going to sell them way more than you just putting random stuff on there. And I think short and sweet is better. Like the more you put on there, it's something that I've had to figure out because I used to write like really long posts. And me just scrolling through LinkedIn, I realized like if a post is too long, I don't read it. I don't read the whole thing. Um, so try to
TLDR.
get your yeah, make everything short and sweet. Highlight the keywords. Don't dilute your resume. Like you want to be a React developer, put all the React related stuff on that resume that's going to sell you as a React developer. Like it's kind of like a niche. Like like if you're starting a YouTube channel, you don't want to have like horse riding videos, basket weaving, programming all mixed together. Like nobody's going to know what your channel's about. Like focus and it would be interesting. Rick said, "Want to pick my resume apart?" I think we could do an episode on that. Have people send us their resumes and we overlook it and possibly tell them where they can improve. What do you guys think?
Can I be like one of the like resident non-experts and just talk about how much I think it's perfect?
You should invite Her Majesty to the
Like
podcast. She's brutal at that stuff. I mean, she and I looked at Patrick's resume, and I was like, I would change this one thing, and she like went full monk. I don't know if you remember that TV show, but like she listed 18
did she
things that
really?
need to change. Yeah, and I'm just like, all right, dude. Like I'm gonna go to him with 3 because he's in an
Respect.
emotional place right now, and I want him to be positive. And she's like, I don't care.
Nah, hell
Let's
no.
fix
I
this.
was in a get shit done. I'm sorry I keep cursing. I'm just so passionate about this
She,
topic. I
but
was just
no,
like, let's go.
you had really good feelings and passion on there, and that's why I was like, like I think any employer that's wanting to hire somebody would see that. And she was like, no, they're not. And so we had a big disagreement about it. So I think that would be amazing because I think too, like at every single resume post I've read, no one succinctly summarized it like Kevin just did about those 3 things. So I think that'd be a great, like just take a tech developer's resume and just say, here's what we would change and why. I think that would be amazing. That would help a lot of people.
Yeah,
There are
let's
two
do it.
people in particular that I think would be great to have on here. Jerry Lee, and then oh god, what's the other guy's name? There are these two guys I followed on Instagram, and they're both like they're all about like LinkedIn networking and like resume writing. I think Work Hop is the company that one of them works for. I'll have to get back to you if you're interested in reaching out to them, Kevin, to have them on an episode. People want to give you positive feedback. Being nice just to be nice, just for being nice crap. That led me astray so many times. I asked people, I'm like,
Mm.
hey, what do you think about my project? They'd be like, oh yeah, it's great. And then I would come to find out there's this massive freaking bug on it where if I have a screen smaller than 760, it like completely, craps the bed. It's like, oh,
Warps the media query.
I know you checked that. I know you checked that. You just didn't want to tell me because you think I have delicate feelings. Well, listen up, damn it. I would like to know. I would like to pick it apart.
Please
Like,
tell
please,
me. Help me. Help me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have thick
That's
skin.
rough.
Kind
Well,
of.
yeah, I think the other
Just let
problem
us
too
know.
is that when we were reviewing portfolios in art school, it was like there was a lot of coding involved, but it was very art. And like what you think is awesome, I might think's not, right? And so like certain things like not working, like the CSS is pretty obvious. But some things like I just didn't feel confident enough in my ability to criticize because I didn't even know if it was right. It was just like my opinion. And I'm like, well, I wouldn't have chose red, but I understand why you did because it really pops out and it shows like this is a problem. So I get it. Like I wouldn't have done it that way, but blah, blah, blah. But that's probably, to Amani's point, that's probably not the best feedback I should have given. In reverse, same for you. So that's a really good point she brings up.
You went to art school?
Yeah, totally. I didn't know what to do after high school. And they were like, go to the Air Force. The Air Force is like, go away. So I'm like,
Dude,
I can do
I tried to
graphic
get into
design.
the
That
Air
looks
Force
dope.
twice. They wanted nothing to do with me. Once enlisted, once as
You
an
didn't bring your
officer.
sales game, man. That's your problem. You didn't bring your sales game.
Oh man.
I'm just
Yeah.
trolling. I'm just trolling. I'm sure you were amazing.
Yeah, no, I
awesome.
mean, the thing about it is the recruiter down here, he was like, apparently he got so much, business. He was like, he's out of the office like 8 months out of the year. He's like, yep, hit my quota, I'm done. It's like, well, what about the people that want to start a career? It's like, but no,
I talked to
I brought that up to music school.
keep going. Oh, okay.
No, I was just saying, I brought it up because I went to music school. You went to art school, music school. And for those listening, like, you don't have to get a CS degree to get into coding. Like, this is proof.
Don't let my daughter hear you. She really wants to get cybersecurity, and I don't want to hurt her dreams.
Okay, for that,
because
you
she's
do need, I don't know, like, for that, you need, like, certifications, and they cost money. And if you get the degree, they usually, like, that's incorporated with the tuition. You're a developer. You can handle it, right? That's how it works. Bringing it full circle.
No, I got things I gotta buy. I don't want to buy her stuff. I don't even like cyber people. And then my own daughter is a cybersecurity person. What does that say to me as a parent? Ugh.
It says that she cares about the firewall that should be around this country that apparently isn't.
I was busy to set that up. I don't know what you're talking about. It wasn't in the cloud formation.
School, where, what instrument? I went to VCU for guitar, classical guitar, but I'm forming a metal band right now. And I also do gypsy jazz. Y'all will see more of that when I move back to Richmond.
What is gypsy jazz? Is that a thing?
Gypsy jazz, yeah. So it's Django Reinhardt, like 1930s, 1940s. He actually was stuck in Paris during the Nazi occupation of France. And though he was considered an inferior race because the gypsies originated from India, which no one knows that, but like over 1,200 years, they went from India to European, they speak Romania, and then they went to France. So anyway, so they were considered an inferior race at some point, during, Nazi occupation. But it was like Django Reinhardt in particular, the godfather of gypsy guitar. He was so renowned, his quintet, the Hot Club de France, or the Patty, I can't remember what it's called. Anyway, he basically was forced to play for all these Nazi officers. There's a movie about it called Django. I highly recommend it. It's free.
Wow.
But basically,
My
yeah.
daughter
So
would
he
like
was
that.
like kind of paraded around, kind of like a circus animal playing gypsy jazz, and it was considered too provocative. So they always had to shut it down early because like people would start tapping their feet, and that was like a no-no. And then the people would start dancing, and they would get rowdy.
What?
So it's like they would tour him around and parade him around because they loved the music, but they loved it too much, and that is theoretically one of the reasons why the Nazi regime kind of crumbled at the officers level because they couldn't unify. Like the gypsy jazz broke through the hatred of the Nazi regime. Like I could talk about this for hours, but
That's
I'm telling you,
awesome.
it's a good movie. Django,
I'm
not
looking
Django
it up.
Unchained. Just look up Django guitar guy,
Yeah,
and you'll find
I'm
it.
googling it.
Best
It's
2
awesome.
hours and 2 minutes you'll spend. I literally went in do not disturb mode when I was watching it. It's in French, by the way. Gypsy Elvis. I'm not familiar with the Gypsy Elvis. The Gypsy Elvis. Who's that? German gypsies. Oh, interesting. Romany Smith. Yeah, I'm gonna have to look into that. The Gypsy Elvis. Yeah, no. Outside, like if you get into coding, like I spent like 20 to 30 hours a week networking to get this job, and now that I have the job, I have free time now. So it's like I'm getting back into my hobbies, my passions. If you do not have a hobby or a passion outside coding, you will drive yourself absolutely insane. My personal opinion.
Yeah, I
I
agree.
don't know what y'all think about that.
No, I agree with you. Burnout's very real. So, I often play like video games, and that's why I'm doing this podcast. And I don't really talk about hardcore coding. Like, I'm not pulling up code on the screen. Like, just want to get away from it at some point.
Hmm. Yeah, the human can, like I missed out on my. So typically we have like a water cooler meeting of sorts. It's like the end of day developer meeting. It's like at 4 o'clock, and usually that's when we just shoot the breeze and hang out or whatever. We get off at 5:30, but we just hang out between 3:45 and 4:15, just talk about whatever. It's the water cooler meeting, but it's officially the end of day developer meeting. So it's like talking about like the human connection being lost in remote work. I think that's like a really cool
Mhm.
way of or like or maintaining it, while it's there. Because you have your stand up, which is like that's all it's all business, but
Business.
having that meeting at the end of the day just to shoot the breeze, talk about nonsense. It's like a great way to like temporarily unplug. Not the word I'm looking for because you're still at work and coding, but
You're socializing. You're connecting. It's still amazing.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Well,
yeah.
it's funny Imani says that because like, who's the guy in town that runs the cloud thing? What's the cloud thing in town? The cloud. You know what I'm talking about. He once had a user group around the cloud wranglers where they were talking about burnout and how to solve it. And he reached out to me directly, which I thought was really nice of him. And I told him, I said, look, I'm the worst person to ask about burnout because I constantly get burnout and I constantly, like very similar to what you were talking about in the beginning. Like I promote, work hard, knock it out. Um, Going back to like the student question Amani asked earlier, like if you're trying to stand out amongst all your peers, it's really hard now because if you rate people from an A, B, C, and D, all the C's and D's have been outsourced, and so all that's left is A's and B's. Now, because of Google, Facebook, and everyone else, we now have an additional 60,000 A's and B's in the market that you didn't have to stand out against. So the only way to do that is to be an A player. And if you're not smart like me, you just have to use willpower and hard work. So the best way is to work hard. The problem with that is it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable. And so you get burnt out. And like my only outlet is, like you said, the hobbies. Like, I do gaming, but to Amani's point, like there comes a point where you're sick of screens, and having a hobby that you have to make up is just helpful. Like, cause I didn't have any hobbies once the pandemic hit. And so I had to like find things and try things like working out, going hiking,
Woodwork is a
all
good
that
one.
stuff. If I spent more money, Her Majesty would beat me. But that sounds really fun. I think the cats.
If you built her a vanity, she would praise you.
When's Valentine's Day? How fast can I learn this?
You will not be
fast
able to build a vanity in 13 days. And well, not with that attitude, at least.
Wait a minute, you're a programmer. I don't believe your estimations. Maybe it could be done. Jesse, is it that hard? Is it that hard?
That was
or no?
That was a good one.
Sorry, man.
so
One
I
of
like
us. I
doing.
control you like one of us.
No, yeah, yeah. So I'm one of you guys. So now you control me with like insider jokes. That was good. That was quick. No, but I'm working on this live edge slab table. I just need to. I had like sawdust that I trapped with epoxy, so I need to like bore that out, clean out the sawdust, and then like yeah, it's like a whole thing.
Sounds really hard.
But nah, I mean, okay, so I got all the hard. The hard part was
Is
like
it
getting all
is
the
it
bark off the
easier
side.
than Rust or not? That's all you have to say. Is it easier than
Oh,
Rust?
absolutely, way easier.
Really? Okay. Well then, that
Okay,
gives me
well it
confidence.
depends. Are you a visual guy or are you a
I went to art school. Yes, visual guy. Totally.
Okay,
Visual.
okay, yeah, duh, of course. Yeah, so if you're a visual guy, then woodwork is going to be easier because you're working everything. So like if you're debugging something in JavaScript, like you're gonna and you don't know what a debugger is because you're fresh out of your boot camp, you're gonna be console logging everything just to see what is working, right? Because
So I
I mean
shouldn't
that's what
tell
I
you.
did.
I still console log everything. Got it. Okay.
Okay, well I use Writer at work, so we have a built-in debugger and
No, I
whatever,
know the
whatever.
.NET people have the best tools, and they're like vegans. They don't remind you that buy that daily. I get it. I'm jealous. Every .NET developer I've ever met is like, I don't have that problem. I just click here and it works. So that's
Yeah.
amazing. All right,
I'm
where
just
would I
going with the
go
flow because
if
this company, like, I'm at the ground level, so I'm just like, whatever y'all use, I'm gonna learn it, and I'm gonna be able to teach someone that gets hired in 6 months
yeah,
from
I
now.
feel
Or
bad because you reached out and you're like, yo, and you looked left, you look right. I think I'm starting to like C#, and I'm like, okay, I'm in a very delicate moment in this young man's life. I need to be very careful about what I say next. And I know you know me, so like I'm not gonna beat you down. We're like, why is it not F#, you traitor? I didn't say that, right? I said it in my
I was
head, but I didn't tell
expecting
you.
something like, you might as well just learn Elm.
No, I was like, I'm gonna find every positive thing I remember from my entire career said to me by every person about C# and just in this LinkedIn DM. That's what I'm gonna do. And it was only 2 paragraphs. I really had to dig deep for those comments, but they were there. And the goal
It's
was
funny.
because every developer who's ever fallen in love with something I've watched them over their career and it's gone well. And any developer who's fallen in love with something and had bad luck has been able to persevere because they have that passion, right? So when you said that, I was like, all right, we need to galvanize this. What can I do to like weld the joints to make sure this doesn't go away? But because you confused me
When
too.
I
You're
re-
like the next day, you're like, all right, I got this Rust thing. I'm like, wait, do you still love C#? Is she like, are we together? Like, what's going on? Oh God.
so yeah, the C#, like the more I get into it, the more I'm just like, oh my dear God, what have I gotten myself into? But like the way that the language has evolved with .NET, it's like there's been a lot of thought put into it, and I definitely appreciate why certain things are the way they are. I'm definitely at the tip of the iceberg level in terms of learning it. I don't have what I would consider a justified opinion on it yet because I definitely appreciate the hatred for it because a lot of people come from enterprise when it was like before C#8 and it was just like a total disaster. You didn't have
Disaster.
called what expressions or whatever. They didn't have the fancy
Nope.
syntax. They didn't
Nope.
have. I don't even think they had generics at one point, which is just ridiculous. Like, how can you not have generic? Whatever. Anyway,
Go 1.0. They
okay. So
even the
yeah,
Go developers who swore that life is amazing if you use the fundamental elements of the universe. They're like, well, maybe the fundamental elements of the universe plus generics. So it's forgiven, totally forgiven.
To your point, I could definitely tell like you're trying to say only positive things about C sharp, and I was like, I respect this guy so much. I definitely acknowledge why, because even my mentor, who's from the Bay Area, I was like, I called him. It was a serious phone call. I said, dude, I have a confession to
Wait a
make.
minute,
He's
are
like,
you
oh, dude, you
millennial
okay?
or a Z-Gen? You use the phone? Really? Okay,
Yeah,
that's got to be
I'm
the
a
sales.
millennial. I'm 28. I called him, and I was like,
Wow.
dude, I have a
There's
confession to
hope
make.
for the human race. We
This
can
is
actually do
serious,
something
man. He's like,
fantastic.
dude, are you okay? I said, I don't know if I'm okay, but like I'm starting to like C sharp. And he's like, oh,
What do you say?
it's good that you like it. You have to do it for work, I guess.
That was not. He didn't think about how that could affect your life. Come on, man. What kind of friend is that?
Dude,
Jeez. Well, at least he was honest.
nah. I'm not that dude, I'm a bulldog. You can't psych me out like that. Ain't happening. Ain't happening.
Well, Amani has an interesting question. She's talking about saturation of skills in the job market, and that's. Can you
Just
elaborate
be
on
the
that,
best.
Amani?
Just be the
Ooh,
best and you don't have to worry about it.
saturation. That's hard.
If she
Let's give her an
if
easier
she's
one.
okay, if
Like,
if she's talking about what I think she's talking about, she's referring to the influx of developers from
oh,
boot camp. And to
right.
that point, all you have to do, first of all, is network. I will preach that until the day I die. I'm going to have a recording, and I started my career by networking. That's going to be playing over the loudspeakers at my funeral. Swear to God. But like network, like your life depends on it because in some ways it does. Because if you don't get your developer, you kill yourself, and you will die. So your life does depend on it. So network, all joking aside, and yeah, that's step one. Step two, create the most banging portfolio ever. Look at it, take a week off, look at it again, realize it's crap, rebuild it, repeat that process like 3 or 4 times, and then you'll be ahead of like 90% of all other bootcamp grads. That's honestly how I feel about
I
it.
always like the quote. What was it? Like you can play the game, or you can. What was the second one? I can't remember the second one. But the third one was you can make your own rules. And
Mm,
right now, if you look at LinkedIn and you squint, there are a variety of people from a variety of companies getting laid off, and they all look the same. The posts, they don't look different. They're all, this sad thing happened. It was from this company. I appreciate my time there. By the way, if you're looking for opportunities, this is what I do. And like when I got laid off, I started seeing other layoffs, and the first thing I did, like, how can I stand out from all of that? So when people see a LinkedIn, they don't do it like Kevin said, like, oh, there's too much text, can't read that. Like I don't have time for that. Like, how can I stand out? And so I made this obnoxious graphic, an obnoxious video, and like everyone shared it, and it was like a great way to stand out. Back in the Flash days, it died, and everyone went to JavaScript or Xcode. And so suddenly I was in a very niche market, in a very desirable, like high, a lot of jobs, thrust into, oh yeah, everyone does JavaScript and PHP. You do backend too, right? I'm like, no, I do front end. That's what Flash developers are. We don't do backend. Like, well, how do you do front end? I'm like, on the front end. Like, no, I use PHP to render that. So that was a really difficult place to be. And so I had to differentiate myself by basically creating a resume that had very UI focus. And so I was very bleeding edge using like
interesting.
Angular or Backbone or stuff like that. So I was front end, and I would get into conversations where CEOs would be like, so you can take this Photoshop comp and you can, make it a web design. I'm like, no, that's a CSS developer. And they're like, well, then what do you do? I'm like, Gmail, I build that. And they would go, oh. And so it was very hard to create the role that I wanted it to be and convince people of that. And that was on the resume and stuff. That was really hard. So right now, if you're like a senior, like let's say an SRE, site reliability engineer, like there's so many in the market right now. Finding a way to stand out from that would be really tough. I think you could do it if you accentuate. I think you actually said it yourself, Amani, further up. All right, Kevin. We'll do 5 minutes because I think this is an amazing question. Monty was talking about like differentiating from the market, specifically around like a site reliability engineer. I don't even know much about it. All I know is that a lot of the SREs I've worked with are really good at ops and monitoring. And if you look at all the monitoring options around AWS and Google Cloud, for example, they're a lot of work, very difficult to visualize. And when something breaks, you're like, yo, what broke? How can I do that now? And so I think, capitalizing on what it is the people are hiring you for is they're hiring an SRE to figure out what went wrong. And if it went wrong, how do we prevent it in the future? Summarizing that in some awesome way on your resume and saying, these are the problems I saw would be great. All the designers, the ones that are getting hired right now, that are getting laid off, have the most amazing portfolios that have their best work first. So they don't have like 50 pieces of work. They actually have 3, even though they've been in the industry for like 25 years. I think the portfolios that stood out are those on the front page where you see that one gig they did. I did the same thing back when portfolios were a thing for developers. I was like HBO Go front page. I helped build the website that let you watch video online. Nowadays, it's not impressive, but back then there was only 2, right? It was like Hulu and HBO Go. So finding that from a coder perspective, machine learning, you have to have a portfolio showing something like your resume can link to your GitHub, but no one's going to go through your GitHub links anymore. Having a website that shows your machine learning project and like the actual visual representation of that, which is really hard for a backend developer. But if somebody can see in a chart your data, that would, dude, hire this person. I know they're not creating that chart. We're hiring them for the data munging, but that machine learning. And then from a front end perspective, I think showing your ability to be, I can do Angular React, like Kevin was saying, like you pitch it towards that, but also what have you done in there that's the latest. So if you're doing Angular, you're doing like the latest Angular 12, like the most recent, with this feature. It solved this user problem, and here's a project I used it on. Putting that front and center. Otherwise, you've got to do the whole full stack route, which is awful. But if you want to, you show, here's the front end, here's what I built about it, but then show the back end somehow, screenshots of the back end or how it connects, or one of those stupid diagrams all the people on media input, because then it shows you understand the full stack, right? And so I think any type of visual, which you can hire people for, you don't have to do it yourself. You can go to like those, I don't know the name of it off the top of my head, but there's tons of websites where they can generate those graphics for like $5. Those really help clients see one picture and go, wow, a bunch of resume text. I would love to hire this person. I think that's how I've seen people stand out from the market, and I had to do it myself once back in 2008. Because to your point, it's really hard right now to stand out. So, what do you got anything to add to that, Patrick? Anything to add?
No, there's no way I could. There's no way I could contribute to that. No, that was gold. I'm gonna listen to that again.
That's not sales. Well, I think the issue too was like there was this goes back to the A, B, C, and D thing. The guy that was teaching me that was actually a manager at AT&T, and he was talking about how you rise in your career. And a lot of us at AT&T, I mean, it's a massive, massive company. They subsidized all the baby bells in the South and broke them up, but it's still a massive company. So if you're like, let's say, one JavaScript developer runs 1,000, how can you go from a senior developer to a principal engineer? And it's like, you just have to get lucky on that one project, or you can do what you said and actually build something, but no one's going to know about it unless you market it. How do you market it? Well, you're not going to show JavaScript code. Nobody cares about that. But what you are going to show is the design to people who appreciate design and care about that. You're going to show the business use case in one sentence to the people who are like, what are you actually providing from an ORI perspective? I'm a business guy. I care about money. And then from a tech perspective, you show the things that you did. So people like you and I reviewing it and go, dude, this guy was messing with Redis and Dynamo and Node.js and serverless. Holy cow. And he's like been doing this for 3 months. Wow. So like those 3 things on a single page, just, grabs all 3 possible fish. You know what I mean? And it has nothing to do with coding. It's all a bunch of stupid JPEGs. But to those target audience, they're like, it's not a stupid JPEG. It reeled me in. I was hook, line, and sinker. You know what I mean? So like it's just about targeting, stuff. And again, you might not think it's impressive, but you can't have that attitude when you go into it. So if you look at what the A and B people do, that's what I've seen them do. And like again, you don't have to be an A, you can be a B. Like that's fine. We all have lives. You don't have to be like Patrick and be the best.
Okay, hey, I have a life. I know I just have a cat, but I have a life too. Damn it.
I'm just jealous because you're like doing 2 languages in 1 week. So how does Kevin end this? Does he have like a saying he says? How does he do that?
For those who code, for those who know. No, there's no saying. I was just gonna make something up.
That was good improv.
No,
I'm
yeah,
impressed.
I feel honored to have been given in part the range. I feel like he gave you the range because there's no way he would truly give a junior developer guest his podcast.
Well, I
I'm
think
I'm
I think
definitely
we
going to
should
be
end it
picking your
on
brain.
what's next. What's
What's
next
up?
for you? I think what's next for you is important. So like you said last we talked, you were really jiving on C#, which is great because it's part of your job, and that's just fantastic. I've been around long enough, and I've seen people who get the job and they get complacent, not on purpose, but they're just like, this is what I was, you know,
Happened to
working
my
really hard
mentor.
for, and I'm enjoying it, and I'm done. And they never change. And so when the world changes, like when we went from, server side generated to front end, they were just like, I don't know what that means. Right. And then now we go back to SSR and they're like, well, yeah, I'm going to use .NET, right? They're like, no, we're going to use, Astro and Node. And so like they never do what you're doing and like continue to get better at the language you're using, but also dive into something new, right? Like you're doing with Rust. What would you say your
Right.
third thing is, do you think?
So I guess like next steps for me, like this whole year is going to be like I've gotten like a lot of positive kudos at work, like in work meetings, like look at Patrick's notes. These are how notes should be taken, guys. Blah 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 blah. Like talking to like the
Notes.
architects at our company, I'm just like, oh god, this is a good thing, but this is also like that. It's like when the teacher is like,
Yeah, you're under the spotlight. Yep, I get it.
it's like when the teacher makes you look like a teacher's pet because you did the job right, no one else did,
Yeah, and
kind of
everyone
thing.
wants to be your friend, and they like you now. Yeah, it's awful. I get it.
I was going somewhere different with that. We must have
Oh,
different
okay.
experiences with being a teacher's pet, but I guess work is going great. I'm well received. They like my work ethic. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Communication is still my flaw, so assumptions. Um, I'm trying to limit my assumptions at work. Like if my manager says do this, I don't want to assume that my idea of his ask is what his ask is. So I'm in the habit now of saying just to confirm this, this, and that. And he said yes, spot on. So I've had to do that less recently, but with him and then my tech lead slash co-owner of the company, I'll try to assume as little as possible. So working on that as far as soft skills is a huge thing because developers need to work on soft skills the most, I think, because like you can be physically proficient with people, then you're screwed. You're not. You have to work with people on a team.
Yeah, I think those
Zuckerberg.
those skills are like way used more in freelance and in consulting. And the fact that you're already starting on it is good. Just because a lot of these clients that you're well, I say clients, I'm already projecting. The people that you're working with now are on your team. The worst is when you are a consulting or freelance, they're not on your team, but you're supposed to do the exact same job. And so that communication with them,
Yeah.
like, all right, you're paying me $5,000 for this thing that's due on Sunday. It's now Tuesday. I'm going to repeat what you told me 3 times and it's going to annoy you, but I have to because I don't want to miss the deadline, then work Monday on something that you're already mad at me about, making less money because if you do the math, I'm now making McDonald's rates to write JavaScript. So
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
the fact that you're doing that, how long? 3 months, 2 months in your career is like
2 months.
infuriating that I didn't do that 2 months into my career. That's awesome. Well, yeah,
No,
okay. So let's end it like this. Unless you got anything else you want to add. I got an idea.
No, I was just gonna say, like, for me, it being 2 months into the game, it's like get as good at the company stack as I can. Like, I'm comfortable with JavaScript, but we're learning Vue, or I'm learning Vue, so it's like
Oh, you're doing
transitioning
Vue.
like React
Okay.
skills to that that's one struggle. But I've got that decent. It's just like learning the monstrosity that is C sharp, and then I'm like frustrated but appreciative of it because of how it's evolved since people have rightfully hated it. It's changed.
Right.
So just
Yeah. So
learning the
you've
stack,
got
learning
that
how to send
context.
data.
That's really good.
I
That's really
absolutely
good.
have the context. That's why when I called my friend, I was like, "Hey, I have a confession." So that, and then like maintaining the passion outside of work. I had this idea to create, like, I think I told you, this 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 thing that is not patented yet, so I can't talk about it. But it's going to require Rust code. It's a firmware project, and I've never written firmware, so it's like maintaining interest in that outside of work. Just really being the best I can at work, and then channeling what free energy I have into this Rust project. That's really what this year is going to be professionally, and then outside of that, just music
All right.
stuff.
So
To
you say this
keep.
year. I'm gonna ask you the same question in a month and see if it's still accurate.
It'll be
All
the
right.
same.
So it will. Okay. I'm not that good at planning, so I'm jealous. Drew's got a good
Oh, I've got
question.
a 3-year plan. I've got a 5-year plan. I've got plans, man. I got plans all day.
God, now I feel really bad. Answer Drew's question.
You shouldn't,
So I
because
don't.
they change all the time. My my
Okay.
my 5-year plan changes every other week. My 3-year plan is pretty consistent, but we'll see.
You sound like my daughter. That's great.
Do you like Vue better than React? Um, I don't even want to answer this question, but
Why
I
not?
think there's things that are.
Your initial unbiased opinions are amazing. You're in a better place than anyone to answer this question because you're fresh at both.
Yeah,
You're the best person to
I
answer this
would
question.
say it depends on why this person's asking. I would say learn React for God's sake, but like, do I like it better? I would say in some cases, okay, so it has one-way data flow. I'm not even using the right terms. I forgot what it's called. But like in React, it's easy to send data between parent and child, child to parent, back and forth, back and forth. But in Vue, you have to send emits, and it's very, it has to be very explicit what you're trying to do. And so just accidentally passing in a function that, passes props up, you know, forgot what the term is when you're doing in React, but everything is very intentional. I do like in Vue where you have your template, which is essentially the JSX equivalent, your HTML, quote unquote. Then you have your scripts, which is all your imports. And now it looks just like React when you use the setup parameter. I'm getting into like really specifics here. Just, I mean, look it up. I don't know. And then you have your style tag below that. I mean, it doesn't matter what order these go in, but basically you have one file and it has everything. So it's kind of like what people try to do with React when they have like style components. They don't want to deal with CSS. I love CSS personally. I'm all about custom CSS. I love it, but we use Tailwind, so it doesn't matter. But being able to work in a file and it's like you just deal with that one file instead of dealing with like, oh, here's this file, and then I have to go to the global SAS, and then I have to configure something with that, and then there's like the color SAS file. It's like, to hell with all that. No, like Vue makes it so easy. So you have just this one file, and it has everything you need for that component, and you just like boop boop boop, files, files, files. So I think it's much more organized in that sense, at least at like a enterprise level, not an enterprise level, what am I trying to say? In a larger application, I think Vue is easier to work through, at least in my case, just because everything is all in one file. Again, I'm kind of repeating myself here, but you have your markup, your script, and your styling all in one page, which just simplifies everything significantly. So I guess I'm leaning
What would you
towards
do to
Vue.
build a POC? Like if regardless of what each one, if you were going to build a quick POC, what would you use?
React, because I've spent I have like 2 years of React under my belt relative to 2 months of Vue. You know what I'm saying? So there's that. Would Vue or React be better to get a POC built? Oh, that's why
Because
you
you've
asked that.
been like I'm familiar with React. I know I can crush it. I'm very quick. I don't have any crazy icebergs. If you said hit this by Sunday, I feel more confident I could do that. So you're just like that's why I'd use
Oh,
React.
absolutely. I would build it in React. Yeah, and I would use VS Code. I wouldn't use Rider. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, dude,
That's awesome.
doing everything in Rider has been crazy. But it's like I got my keyboard shortcuts down now, so it's like all the same, except it's on Windows, so it's not. But it's like
That's wait. I'm thinking of the plugin for C Sharp. Writer's the actual IntelliJ based IDE for C Sharp, right?
yep,
Okay. Yeah,
JetBrains.
I missed.
Yeah.
I was thinking of the Resharper. My bad. The actual plugin. Y'all use Resharper at all? I've heard it's like a
It's
super
been mentioned,
dope
so I assume we use
add-on.
it. There's so
Okay.
much about this company that I still don't know. It's just kind of unsettling.
I know
I mean, I work there.
it's like bartending. They throw you in and they say, "All right, serve drinks," and it's just like, "How do I do this?" Like, I don't know. Go Google how to make a martini. Good luck. So yeah, programming is very similar. They just kind of throw you in the fire, just make progress.
It's like, hey, so I remember I
All
worked
right.
at
Well,
IHOP one time, and someone was just
IHOP.
final story, and someone was like, "Hey, my pancakes are too hot." I'm like, "Okay, give me 1 second." So I picked them up and I set them. I put them in the fridge, and then I brought them back. I said, "Sorry, we just made this new one fresh for you." Just totally BSing them. Like, "Oh, perfect." I'm like,
I did
"Yeah."
that at Wendy's. I did at Wendy's. So I was at Wendy's. I was in the sandwich, and it was like right around the corner. And they said, "Yo, like this is wrong." And so I turned to the right and yelled at the guy. There was actually no one there, but I always blamed it on the guy. I said, "Sorry, ma'am. He's new. I'll work on it." She can't see who that is because it's like in a around the corner. So I yell at this guy, and I said, "Ma'am, we'll fix it." I took her sandwich, moved it, and I just literally took off the tomato that she was mad about, and then gave her a new
Oh
bun. That
yeah,
was
yeah,
it.
yeah.
So like I didn't actually change the sandwich, and she was like super appreciative. And she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, you have to deal with that guy. But it's all right. He's new. He's got a hard family life. We'll make it through this. Thank you so much for your business, ma'am." Right? I did not get paid enough to deal with that crap. Yeah, it was awful.
Oh, of
Absolutely
course
awful.
not. No one does.
Well, speaking of jobs, I think it's important that we end this podcast on mentioning that Patrick is not an isolated incident. There are a ton of people I work with, and some of them I've been working with. By working with, I mean I send positive vibes, right? I give advice, I do the best I can, and like
He
sometimes we're
does.
just chatting about code, but like this could go on for months, and we're at a point in our industry where we haven't been since I think 2000. But the main thing that seems to be consistent is that there's always work to do, regardless of Chat GPT or AI or anything else. People like us who want to build things are needed. There are people that don't like building stuff. So even if they had a Chat GPT version 11, they wouldn't use it. They'd expect people like us to go tell, the AI. So there's always going to be a need for people like us in tech who like to build things. We all have a variety of different skills that we use. And so everything you're doing from college to learning to looking for jobs is totally worth it. Whether it's React or Vue or Angular or backend stuff, doesn't matter. And I think you should keep doing it and keep your head up. I know it's rough right now, but it's 2023. I think once we get past, I would say third quarter, like around the summer, things will pick up again and we'll be in a better place. And so you should just not give up. I know it's hard, but you should just keep going. That's what I think. You agree with
I was
that? Or
gonna
you think I'm
say,
full of shit? What do you think?
no. I mean, if someone is starting fresh right now, by the time you're job ready, you'll be fine. So don't even worry about it. Like I have a friend of mine that I'm mentoring right now. He started learning C sharp. I'm like, hold on. Slow down. Let's start with HTML, CSS. So we have him. I'm basically like walking him through what I did in the boot camp. I'm like, so I'm mentoring him through that. I'm like, yeah, you'll be job ready by the end of the summer. And I'm not telling anything about the job industry. I'm not telling him anything about what's going on now. And I'm telling him, it's like, you should get on LinkedIn. I shouldn't have told him that because then he'll see all the layoffs and
Well, he won't have all the friends yet, so he'll only see the positive things that we post and like. Except for you. You and I
that's
both
true.
like keep
That's
sharing
true.
like people's jobs. So that's good, man. You're paying it forward. That's fantastic. That's exactly what you
I
should do.
try to every time I see
Well,
laid off posts. I reposted. Unless it's HR.
There's some
No,
of
I'm just
them.
kidding.
There's some of them. Yeah, that's the other
I'm
challenge too,
terrible.
is that some of the HR, agile, project management, product people, it's a struggle for where do I post those, because people in my network, some of them would know, and so a lot of those I have to message directly, but it's hard because there's so many. But anyway, so I'm Kevin, thank you so much for inviting Patrick and I. This is really fun, and
Yes,
hopefully
thank you.
y'all from Coder Conversations. I can't wait to see the resume episode. That's gonna be cool. Terrifying. I'm not gonna send my resume.
I would love to see that. I'm definitely gonna submit mine.
All right, I'll make fun of yours. I won't make. All right, I got to get Brandy to watch that one. So do your stupid date math thing in LinkedIn messages, and so Brandy and I don't miss it, because like I'll forget unless you remind us. Remember that thing I was talking about? Like you said something, I didn't respond. Like, Jesse, are you there?
Yeah.
You said
No,
you
no,
wanted
no,
your
I
wife
got
to
you.
watch this because she had opinions on my resume. I'm like, no, they were. We care. We really care. It's important.
No. I'm not soft when it comes to criticism. It's cool. No, but yeah, Kevin, thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. Thank you a lot.
It's great to be on. Holy crap, it's been 2 hours. Yeah,
I
we're
know.
getting
Fun
into
times, right?
we're getting into a JRE
Territory.
realm here. Yeah, his 3 and 4 hour long podcast, but it is past my bedtime because coding has made me a early
Night owl.
go to sleep.
Oh, an early
person.
riser? Oh,
Not
interesting.
necessarily.
I
I
used to code till
just
3
sleep
a.m. when
more.
I was your age. Interesting. Okay. I'll have to try this
Yeah,
early rise thing.
not anymore, man. I'm almost 30. It's not
Ooh.
happening.
It's all right. You don't have to worry about the pains until you're my age, buddy. Oh, you can't see the bicep on the podcast. Bummer. All right.
Get the fuck out of here.
All right, y'all. It was fun. See y'all later.